Let's go back to the beginning, before the details began changing. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky, and tonight I want to talk a little bit about the surviving roommates in the Idaho 4 case. Now, I believe that most people would have a hard time processing the idea that 911 was not called for 8 hours. That's hard to explain away. There's not really a good excuse for not calling 911. Now, what makes it even more of a mystery is that there were 2 surviving roommates that were inside this house while the crimes were being committed. That's what leaves a lot of us scratching our heads, because how were there 2 surviving roommates in this house who we know were awake because they were messaging each other while these crimes were being committed? So why wouldn't they call 911? This is extremely suspicious, and it makes everything look very suspicious. Because any sensible individual would have called 911. Now, I mean, if they could text each other, they had the ability to call 911. Now, if they would have called 911 while these crimes were being committed, law enforcement possibly would have had the opportunity to catch whoever was committing these crimes. Now, is it possible that they didn't call 911 for this reason? It's possible. Now, I'm going to start with Bethany first, because Bethany was on the ground floor. So, I've said in previous videos that I believe that whoever committed these crimes entered through the front door. I still believe that they entered through the front door. I believe they went right through the front. Now, I also believe that it's very possible that Bethany could have opened the front door for these individuals. Now, I'm not saying that she opened the door for them to come in and commit these crimes, but it's very possible that she knew these people and opened the front door for them, not knowing what was about to happen, but that she was familiar with these people and did open the front door. It would make sense because she was on the ground floor. They could have knocked at the door. They could have knocked on her window to get her attention. And if she was familiar with them, she would have opened the front door. I'm sure a lot of people passed in and out of that front door. It was a party house, so it probably wasn't uncommon for her to answer the front door since she is on the ground floor. We know that front door was opened around 4 a.m. because of the DoorDash order. But I believe it's very possible that door could have been opened prior to the DoorDash order. Now, Bethany, her statements really didn't add up. They kind of didn't really even make sense. So, Bethany stated that she returned home around at approximately 1 a.m. But she also stated that Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house at a party from 9 p.m. on the 12th until 1:45 a.m. when they returned home that morning. But how would she know they were there until 1:45 a.m. if she got home at 1 a.m.? That's a detail that never really made sense to me. Now, if y'all remember in the very beginning, it was reported that Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house from 8 to 9 p.m. on the 12th. And they were looking for information about Ethan and Xana's whereabouts from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. because they didn't know Ethan and Xana's whereabouts during that time in the beginning. So this is 3 days that this was reported after the crime. This is on the 16th. So by this time, I mean, I would have to believe that they've already interviewed Xana, or they've already interviewed Bethany. But so Bethany would have told them then that the roommates had gotten home at 1:45. But on the 16th, they were still asking about the whereabouts of Ethan and Xana from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. So there's some confusion in that statement. Now, Bethany hasn't really said much. Bethany has been flying below the radar since these crimes happened. Now, we know that Bryan Kohberger's attorney, and ultimately Bryan Kohberger, believes that Bethany could possibly have exculpatory evidence, information that could clear his name. Now, why would they believe that? Why would Bryan Kohberger believe that Bethany may have information that could clear his name in this crime? Is it possible that Bryan Kohberger wasn't arrested until the end of December? So is it possible that Bryan Kohberger was hearing information on campus? Maybe Bethany had talked to some people, because rumors were spreading and information was spreading around the campus. Students were talking to each other. Now, so is it possible that Bethany had put some information out there and that Bryan Kohberger heard this information? Because we know that Bryan Kohberger was talking about these crimes before he was arrested. There's been a few witnesses that have come out and that knew Bryan Kohberger that have come out and said that he had talked about the crime with them in passing. I know that it was stated that one person, he was talking to one person and he had told this person that he believed that it was possibly a crime of passion. So we know that Bryan Kohberger was talking about it, so he's probably hearing about it as well. So did Bryan Kohberger possibly hear the information that maybe Bethany was sharing with some of the students? That's a definite possibility. Now, Bethany kind of made it sound like she just slept through these crimes. And then she woke up the next morning to this crime scene. But that wasn't true, because we know that her and Dylan were messaging with each other while these crimes were occurring. So she was awake. Dylan was awake as well. Now, Bethany would have been the furthest from everything going on. She would have also been the closest to an exit. She would have been able to escape the easiest, in my opinion. She could have climbed out her window or ran right out the front door. So there's a reason why she chose not to flee the scene. We don't know what that reason is. But if I'm on the ground level and there's a stranger upstairs taking the lives of my roommates, I'm not going to stick around until noon. I'm not going to stick around. I'm not going to stick around at all. Not when I have these exits available to me. I'm going to flee this scene. I'm gone. I'm calling 911. She didn't do that. Now, Dylan was right in the mix of all of this. So Dylan is right underneath. Her ceiling is Maddie's floor. So Dylan is right underneath Maddie's room. And right around the corner and across the living room from Xana's bedroom. Now, Dylan, she stated that she did hear noise. She heard what sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog, which I assume that she heard furniture upstairs rustling around. You know, I've talked to a few people, and when we're talking about the crime scene in these bedrooms, I feel like sometimes people, they picture it as they see it on the walkthrough on Zillow, or when they see pictures of the inside of this house, they picture it empty that way. So it appears that you would have a lot of room to move around and that you would be able to maneuver around this house pretty easily. But what we have to remember is that there was furniture in this house. There was stuff in this house that this suspect would have had to work around. So there was furniture in Maddie's bedroom. There was a desk, there was an end table, there was a bed, and it was a rather small bedroom. That's another thing that we always have to keep in mind, is that these bedrooms are pretty small. When you look at the size of Xana's bedroom, it's fairly small. So these aren't wide open rooms. These are rooms that are full of furniture because they're small bedrooms. Now, Dylan then says that, she heard, we've gone through this in previous videos, so I don't want to talk about everything that Dylan heard. But what she didn't hear was the lives of her 4 roommates being taken, apparently. So Dylan, in my opinion, is one of the biggest mysteries of this case. Because when these crimes were first reported, if y'all remember, when these crimes were first reported, it was reported that Dylan and Bethany were on the ground floor at the time of these crimes. And then somehow Dylan moved up to the second level. And in her statement in the PCA, she stated that she originally went to bed in her room. She originally went to bed in her room. So I believe that it is a good possibility that after whoever committed these crimes left the crime scene, I believe that it's very possible that she did go to Bethany's room and that they were both on the ground floor at that point. Because in her statement, she did say that she originally went to bed in her room. So she ended up somewhere else. So I would think that she would have ended up in Bethany's room on the ground floor, and that's why it was reported that way. Now, do I believe that these two surviving roommates had anything to do with these initial crimes? I don't. I don't want to believe that these two surviving roommates had anything to do with these crimes. I mean, it's been said that, whoever did these crimes must have had inside information. And I've heard about the possibility that Dylan gave whoever did this the heads up from inside the house and let them know that the roommates had gone to bed. And I've heard a lot about Dylan and Bethany and the two surviving roommates. But I don't believe that they were involved in the initial crime. But I do believe that they possibly indirectly became accomplices in this crime. I believe it's very possible that Bethany opened that front door. Do I think she knew what was about to happen? I don't. But I do believe that she opened that front door. I believe they went in through the front. That is the way that would make the most sense. Because then you can clear the floors as you go up. You know who's in the house. But did whoever committed these crimes already know who was in the house? Did they have inside information? I don't want to believe that they did. I don't want to believe that whoever committed these crimes had inside information from the surviving roommates. It's possible that these surviving roommates got indirectly involved in this. That 8-hour delay, that raises a lot of questions. That's a long time. I don't believe that. I do believe that these roommates could possibly be in shock, because I really don't believe that these roommates knew that these heinous crimes were going to occur. I don't believe that they knew that it was going to go this far. I mean, I guess I believe that, they should have called 911 sooner. They should have called, neither one of them called 911 at all. But we don't really know. I mean, you can't really say how someone is going to react to this type of crime. This was a very gruesome crime scene. I would imagine that these surviving roommates would have been able to smell the odor in their house. The odor in the house was described as being very pungent. So these surviving roommates would have smelled this odor. Now, there's also the idea of the cleanup. I feel like the crime scene, there was definitely some cleaning performed in this crime scene. Now, in my opinion, the latent footprint that was found in front of Dylan's bedroom door could very possibly have been Dylan's. and maybe she cleaned it up. Maybe she wasn't part of the actual crime, but maybe she walked through the crime scene. We know that footprint was human body fluid. So if somebody had stepped in body fluid and stepped in front of Dylan's room, and then that footprint was cleaned up, that we do know. But we also know that it was a Vans type of footprint. And it was also, I believe it was reported that it was like a size 9. Not, I believe Brian Koberger, it was reported that he wore a size 13. So I would have to feel like there was some cleaning going on that morning. And it's very possible that that's what took so long. I don't believe that Dylan saw the intruder. She mentioned that he was clad in black, 5'10" or taller. But she never mentioned that he was covered in body fluid. Or maybe that he was carrying a big sharp-edged blade. Because that would be something that your eye was definitely drawn to before someone's eyebrows. In my opinion, I think you would notice a big knife in someone's hand. In my opinion, that's something your eyes would be drawn to. Now, if she was frozen in shock, I can understand that. We don't know how people are going to react. This is a crazy scene, so we don't know how people are going to react. So who could blame her for being in shock? That's totally understandable. But not at that point go back to bed and then wake up the next day and realize that what you saw 7.5 hours prior was all true. Why wouldn't you believe that it was true when you saw it? And then to basically call friends over before calling 911. The surviving roommate situation is what I believe makes this extremely mysterious. Because we know that whoever committed these crimes completely neglected them, did not, left them out of the whole situation. Why were they left out? Why were their lives spared? There's a lot of talk around these surviving roommates. And it's suspicious. It is. I mean, the 8 hours of not calling 911 alone is extremely suspicious. But everything, all of the details that have changed from the very beginning to now, they were all sleeping in their beds, but now we know that they were probably awake. The surviving roommates were sleeping, didn't hear anything, but now we know that they were awake because they were texting each other. So that's a big mystery, is what exactly happened. It's going to be very difficult to explain that 8 hours. I think the surviving roommates, as much as I don't believe that they were part of the initial crime, I do believe that they became involuntarily involved. Why? I do believe that they could be withholding evidence. I do believe that they could be withholding information. And there's a lot of reasons why. It's very possible maybe they knew these people. It's also very possible that they're afraid to say anything. Who could blame them? They were in the same house where 4 individuals were brutally had their lives taken with a sharp-edged blade. So I don't believe that they would be too interested in coming forward with any information that could possibly be a threat to these people. And that might explain a lot, because we don't have an explanation for the 8 hours at all. We don't have an explanation for why it looks like the crime scene had been cleaned. The 2 surviving roommates, in my opinion, are one of those missing puzzle pieces. Finding out exactly what was happening with these 2 surviving roommates is key, I believe, in solving this case. And there's more and more information coming out about these 2 surviving roommates. There's a lot of other, places to find information. And I believe that students are talking, but they're not talking to law enforcement, because it's very possible that it could be students involved in all of this. Very possible. And it's very possible that the surviving roommates could be connected to these students. So we're going to keep looking into these 2 surviving roommates. I believe that finding out exactly what was happening during that time, during those 8 hours, as well as what exactly were they doing that night. We're going to look into that. Please like and follow my channel. I appreciate everybody who comments and who follows my content, follows my channel. It really means a lot to me. I get a lot of information out of the comment section. And I also want to say thank you to the individuals who email me. I get a lot of emails with a lot of really great ideas and a lot of information. And I do collect that information, and I'm going to be putting all that information into future videos. So thank you all for supporting my page. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.